You know what's nice? First love. I mean, usually at least. I guess not always. For the purposes of this story, let's just agree it is. My first serious girlfriend came about pretty much the same way all of my relationships have. Someone I had no real interest in or knowledge of, seemingly at random, ask me out, and then we keep going out until they give up on me becoming a better person. In this specific case, a girl in my 8th grade history class and I started a little bit of a flirty thing involving Pop-Tarts, which lasted through the school year, and then over the summer she invited me to her birthday party. It was your pretty standard junior high birthday party involving shaving cream fights, volleyball, and awkward living room dancing to bad music popular at the time. During this party, a friend of the girl in question pulled me aside and asked me if I would go out with the birthday girl. I was a bit torn about the proposition. On the one hand, this was a girl both of my friends absolutely loathed because she was apparently quite annoying in elementary school. I didn't go to their elementary school, so this complaint was meaningless to me, but I also dreaded the reaction of my friends if I were to date her. On the other hand, we had already kind of been flirting through the sharing of Pop-Tarts and homeroom, and it was her birthday of all days. Possibly most important of all, I had shown up to her party without a present for her, so I had to make up for that somehow. And so we became an official couple. My friends did end up taking the news pretty much exactly as expected. To some degree, their frustration with this situation was understandable. For instance, I managed to convince my parents to take me to a concert for a pair of alternative Christian bands I was really into at the time, and they said I could bring one person. I could have chosen my friend Ryan, the first person to befriend me in public school, and a pastor's son who had a shared interest in alternative Christian music and the headlining band specifically. Instead, I chose my new girlfriend, someone who had no knowledge or interest in the niche world of this type of music. Other times, however, I think their displeasure was a bit exaggerated, such as when I would spend a long period of time on the phone with her and they wanted to call me but kept getting a busy signal. Did you know? If you tell the operator that it's an emergency, they'll disconnect a line that's busy and put you through? Well, my friends figured that out and had no qualms about faking an emergency. The frustrations of my friends aside, it was still my first serious relationship, and many moments were indeed quite nice. She was the first girl I ever held hands with, the sort of magic moment county fairs are meant for in the eyes of an innocent young teen such as I was. Later that week, she became my first kiss in my parents' garage as our chaperone, who was her younger sister, briefly disappeared to show her grandmother our kittens. In the fall, we attended a trip to Cedar Point with my church's youth group and spent the entire day walking around or riding the train. We didn't ride a single real ride, which is something you can really only get away with doing as an Ohioan, because it's probably the 3rd or 4th time you've been there that year. Besides, the day wasn't a complete waste, since it led to her and I exchanging I love yous for the first time, followed by our first naughty makeout session of the French variety. Something which, out of context, could seem a bit romantic, but the reality was that it all happened in the middle bench seat of a van that included my parents in the front and my sleeping sibling and cousins in the back. All of this sounds nice and innocent enough, but not even a blossoming romance in one's freshman year of high school can be perfect. We regularly argued over the phone, and trying to encourage our friends to get along at the school lunch table was a hopeless task. She even dumped me a first time because she felt there wasn't enough trust in our nearly 6-month-old relationship. This was quite a surprise to me at the time, and due to undiagnosed depression, I didn't take it very well. I went so far as to approach the bonfire at our homecoming game with the intent of walking into it before collapsing on the ground in tears among a crowd of strangers. We did reconcile at the homecoming dance, though, thanks to a friend of hers and a slow dance to some cheesy pop country song. All of the power of a LeAnn Rimes hit song can't fix problems that aren't directly addressed, though. She was naturally an outgoing and friendly person. That's how we got together in the first place, after all. I, however, was a jealous little cretin bolstered by a friend actively hoping to see us separated. So, not long after we got back together, I began to notice her spending most of her after-school computer lab time in chat rooms. Again, a perfectly normal and innocent thing for a friendly, outgoing teen in the late 90s to do. But in my eyes, it was a sign of something nefarious. And so, having learned nothing from our previous brief breakup, I recruited a friend to assist me in creating a chat room and email account for a fictional ideal male. He then proceeded to contact and woo her through this Trojan horse, and kept me up to date on her replies. This went on for a couple of weeks, and eventually I felt I had enough evidence to confront her as cryptically and dramatically as possible in our very public and full after-school computer lab, of course. I first pretended to spy her conversation with my friend on her screen, and then asked her about their relationship. She claimed innocence, but then I pulled up access to the fake friend's email account on my computer and essentially declared, "Aha! But what about this?" So that all could bear witness to her perceived treachery. With the benefit of 20 plus years of maturity and hindsight, I realized this was an extremely shitty thing to do. At the time, though, it seemed not only justified, but ingenious. I left that room with an angry sense of accomplishment, and she followed shortly after in tears. I then graciously agreed to forgive her, and we remained a couple. For another month or so, until I think she had time to process everything and reconsider our relationship, at which point she rightly decided to dump me once again, and to her credit, did not take me back despite another homecoming dance and a lengthy letter from me pleading for forgiveness. This all sent me into a depressive spiral that isn't entirely relevant to the theme of this story. Instead, let me end with something nice that came out of the implosion of my first serious relationship. Valentine's Day came around shortly after she dumped me, and I spent the day poorly attempting self-harm and sleeping before my dad offered to take me to the video store and to get pizza. That night I rented a Corey double feature of Haim in Fast Getaway and Feldman in the Burbs. For the first time in a week, I felt happy and content, and didn't spend time wallowing in misery. I spent that evening completely absorbed by the trials and tribulations of Tom Hanks as he tried to rein in the craziness of his neighbors and their conspiracies. I was fully invested in Corey Feldman's plight of showing his friends a good time while awaiting the arrival of the pizza dude. For an hour and a half, I lived in Hinckley Hills, and I, too, was suspicious of what those new Slavic neighbors could be up to at midnight. That Valentine's night, I realized Laura McCracken may have been the first girl I ever said I love you to. But movies and their power to transport you to another place and time, even if for just 90 minutes, were my first love.